The big headline that we're going to be debating this week on Democratic Newsroom: does India need a caste census? Now remember, caste census has been a running theme right through the election campaign, fronted largely by Rahul Gandhi of the Congress party, and now after the elections it's become a recurring theme once again, in fact becoming the subject matter of an angry flashpoint recently in Parliament between Rahul Gandhi and top leaders of the Modi government. So let's kick it off with the big question: does India need a caste census? Kamlesh, you answer that question first. Where do you stand?
Yes, a big yes. It's not about caste census. India first needs census. The last one was carried out in 2011. 2021 was, it's every 10 years. 2021 was the COVID year, so we thought it will be later, but I think it's getting very late. There are lots of things connected with the census, including the next including deciding the parliamentary seats next time, because the numbers will go up. Now, caste census, I think in 2011, the caste category was there in the census, but the results were not announced. We do not know who is what. Then, in the last 3-4 years, we have realized that state parties started in Bihar, where they can't conduct a census. Census is the authority of the central government, so they conducted what is called a caste survey.
Yeah.
And then they got some results, and based on those, they announced a policy which is in the courts right now. We need a caste census to know how the reservation system has worked in this country. The last one was Mandal Commission in 1980. That's like 45 years ago. Has the quota system that came into place in 1990s, has that helped in pulling some castes out of the other backward classes category? Remember, the reservation is not based for the backward castes. Is not based on caste.
So you're saying it's required to see whether the entire affirmative action process has worked at all. And
yes.
It's been too long since there has been a status check on this.
Yes.
Okay. Preeti?
I completely agree with Kamlesh. Other than the politics, we definitely need a caste census, and why I feel so is, as Kamlesh pointed out, the last census was in 2011, and that's where the big question mark comes in. Just to put some facts out there, India as a country is the biggest country to roll out an action plan based on castes across the world. And what are we basing this action plan on, which reservation is a part of that we give, is actually on a caste census which took place in 1931. So in 2024, we are basing all our policies, reservation policies, on a caste census which was conducted in 1931, because 2011, the details of the demography was not made public. So we are actually operating blind while, I have a very basic thing. If we are going to have reservation in this country, if we are going to have policy making on the back of caste in this country, then we need to know what that caste calculation actually is. You need to understand and maybe work with those numbers, because then you're working blind. Okay. If there's reservation, there has to be a caste census. And we are not in a place in this country where we can forego reservation.
Okay,
is what I
So we'll get to, in the second round of questions, we'll talk about the politics that has, erupted over caste census. But the basic question, Gaurav, do you agree that a caste census is required, and if you don't have it, then it's just flying blind with reservations?
So affirmative action is required in a country like India. For far too long, the correct action hasn't been taken on the basis of correct facts. When you do a census, you get to know who needs to be brought up, how much, as Kamlesh and Preeti rightly pointed out, whether the Mandal Commission reservations, are they actually working, are they not working? But you need to refine the system. It has to be a nuanced debate. This politics around it, when you say jitni abadi utna haq, that will lead to majoritarianism, and that can have devastating consequences, because if it's jitni abadi utna haq, and if you look at Hindus as Hindus, then others will actually say ki 80% Hindus hai, jitni abadi utna haq, what happens to the others? So it has to be a very nuanced debate. you have to keep politics, while you cannot keep it out of it, but you have to ensure that you approach this issue with an India first perspective. You have to ensure it's done to benefit the country and not to benefit certain political groups or parties, and ensure that you practice what you preach. For example, when you talk about reservation and you talk about taking forward SC, ST, OBCs, you don't deny the same SC, ST, OBC reservation in a Jamia Millia Islamia and Aligarh Muslim University, because that is where you're playing vote bank politics in the name of caste census.
Okay, I'll get into the politics of caste census also and go deeper into some of the points that are raised by the three of you. Nabila, where do you stand? Is it a clear answer that it is required and the politics can be ignored for the moment because the larger good of getting that data that's required to sharpen reservations, etc., is the need of the day?
It is a must to keep politics aside. It's unfortunate that politics still play by caste, and I would want to wish away caste system, but it's again unfortunate that we're still staring at it 75 years after Indian independence. But my limited point here is that if there is reservation, there must be a caste census. You need to understand what, the population of each community and caste so that you better allot the resources that are available. But 75 years and running for India to still continue with the reservation system, should there be an end point? And when will that happen? It can't be indefinite. We can't keep, carrying out, giving reservations to communities. And even if we are, what are the side solutions that we're coming up with to ensure better education, to ensure better health facilities to those communities? So whichever political party is asking and urging, pushing for a caste census, I'm sorry, they don't have a credible history when it comes to actually treating their own, caste, who voted for them well. I don't want to get to the religion or the caste that I'm referring to here. I'm sure you'd understand. But parties that say that we are for the Muslims or we are for a certain community haven't really done much to uplift them, as much as just firing from their shoulders to play politics.
Okay, Pooja, I left you till the end because I sense that you don't like the idea of a caste census. You think that today's India has no place for it. Why do you think that?
I've not been able to convince myself of a caste census in 2024, and the reason is I feel, Shiv, that it's primarily to target the Hindu community. And why I say that is because, for example, if the caste census is being done, then it should also be done for other communities, because on surface all religions are equal. But we know, for example, there are the Pasmanda Muslims who say they are extremely discriminated against the Sayyids and the Ashrafs. So you'll need that demarcation to help understand if other communities have that too. For example, the Jat Sikhs and the Dalit Sikhs, there are segregated Gurdwaras in some places in Punjab. So my understanding is,
Punjab already has a reservation.
So that's what I'm saying, that no, if it's, then it can't be Hindus in castes and others as religious communities, because then we have to aim at welfare. If that is the opinion here of the Netas, if you're looking at welfare for the discriminated or the oppressed, which also needs a certain more objectivity to it, it cannot be that left, right and center. It needs to be looked at all communities, including the Christian community as well.
Can I just jump in?
Yeah,
I totally agree. But what Pooja also, I think, is referring to is that you need better definitions when it comes to reservations.
Correct.
And that will also be, that outcome will come only with the caste census. You can't do away with caste census if you want to better give a reservation allotment.
Kamlesh, wishing politics out of a caste census and the debate around the caste census is asking for the impossible. I don't think that's ever going to happen. And after all, it is the politicians who will bring it in. But the concerns that have been raised by everyone here about the manner in which, a caste census also is a kind of national opportunity, a milestone to make things better and move things forward. How much of a concern are the points that are raised by everybody about different communities, the fact that, it may not be done the right way, political pulls and pressures, etc.?
See, when you look at in the light of the reservation system, it applies only to Hindus right now. So we should stick to this. I know we think that Hindus are being divided in the name of caste, but Hindus are already divided in the name of caste. Thing is, in the last 40 years, I have seen, as I grow up every year, I see that there have been castes that are listed as backwards, but are politically empowered, have been empowered, and it's a good thing. Has the political empowerment of those castes helped them in getting economic and social progress?
Yeah.
Can they still claim to be, can they wear this badge of backwardness to claim benefits while other castes in the same category continue to lag behind.
Who've not got those economic benefits.
Yes, in some states you can't imagine a non-backward caste person to become the CM. You know, because now they were, I mean, historically they have been backward, but no longer. There are some castes, they have made leaps, you know, forward. But that political empowerment, that coming to power, has that helped them in getting their community up? If that is how it is, then the system should be tweaked. But how do we do that? Unless we know. We do not know the health, education and other indicators. How do these communities, I mean castes, perform right now? Because the last one happened in as Preeti said, 1931.
Political pitfalls, Preeti?
You know, I'll tell you what, I'd like to just steer clear of political pitfalls right now, because there have been many, and I think our history has been marked with that, you know, Mandal Commission, or even before, or rather, let's just go back for the person who actually brought it forth. Look at Ambedkar. Ambedkar was a proponent of reservation, says we should abolish it after 10 years, but we couldn't do it, right? You are in a place right now. And I do think, you know, when we speak of a casteless society, casteless India, or even merit, you know, it's an illusion of the privileged. And I'll give you an example why I say that. I have, and I'll just personalize it a bit. I've had an army upbringing, and for anyone who's, you know, got a semblance of it, is one of the most secular upbringing that you could possibly get. I didn't know my caste. And that was a privilege I realized when I was in college, because then I stood aside somebody who has been persecuted on the basis of caste. And that's when I had that conversation with myself. I'll give you another example. You know, we go, my first election was the UP election. And I remember from Noida taking a car to Gorakhpur. It was a long drive. And my driver, whose name was, I will not forget, Abhinesh Kumar. And he laughed and he spoke with me, and I understood the gravitas of the situation later, because if you see the entire highways dotted by dhabas, and you will see those billboards which will say, Per Abhilash Sharma or whatever ji. I never understood ye per ka kya matlab hota hai. And then he explained his naam Pandit hai.
Yeah.
So, and his entire being was, he's a Kumar because he's trying to hide his identity. Because he's actually, you know, a scheduled caste, and he doesn't want to give out, because, you know, what's strange, and he actually taught me that even within the Dalit and the scheduled caste, there's a Brahmanical order. You know, there are some higher up than the others, and that's when it actually dawned on me that why we need a caste survey.
Yeah.
Because for him, like what Kamlesh was saying, there are certain castes that have been able to, you know, get the benefits of the reservation policy, but there are some which haven't been able to get it.
Yeah.
To make our reservation policy better, we need
The caste census is required
we
to know
need
that.
to deliver social and economic justice in our country. We need to know who hasn't got it.
Sure.
And that's the only way to find out.
Yeah.
I have a counter here, and again, for me, the counter is personal for a similar reason. For example, if census is done today, I will be
Pooja,
mentioned.
I'll just come in and and I'm sorry to bring it up, but that's what we're discussing. You are a Pandit. Right?
Listen.
So you
hear me
speak
out.
from privilege.
See, no, but that is what you're assuming. Let me make my
You're
point.
not?
Preeti, let me make my point.
Right.
But so what? I mean, you know, you just put her in a corner. You're a Pandit. That's so unfair.
It's a perfect point. It's a perfect point that Preeti has made.
What's
How is it unfair? We're discussing caste. We're discussing.
Preeti, it's a perfect
Pooja's
point.
been addressed. Let her answer, then Gaurav can come.
Today,
Yeah.
if census is done, a caste census, my name will come as a Hindu, and because I'm born in a Brahmin caste, it will be mentioned as such. But I also come from a community that had to witness the worst brutalities, which had nothing to do with the caste system. We did not get the benefits because of the supposedly privileged Brahmins. Tell me, what did Kashmiri Pandits get as a Brahmin benefit when they had to start from a garage and a shop and literally rebuild their life? It is assumed.
Pooja, I have empathy for you. I have deep sympathy for you, but that has nothing to do with this.
Preeti, understand what I'm saying. Let me finish it. While I know people from other communities, for example, the Muslim community, or let's say any other community, who have done fairly well because of the welfare schemes, because of the reservations that have been a part of it, and I then want to wonder, how does Brahmin really help me for a time, for a moment, for communities, that have absolutely been assumed to be privileged. While they'll tell you
it's not
they've lived
assumed. No, that's the worst thing to say. It's not assumed. You are privileged.
You are
I am
questioning
privileged.
our lived experience. That's what I'm trying to tell you. That there, for example, Hindus in Punjab will tell you they feel discriminated. There will have to be a more refined system to understand how caste is where.
All right, so Muslims,
and this is what should not be
Muslims,
ignored. You know, this is unfortunately this is what this entire debate ignores. You know, that angst
Assuming
that
your
puja,
government thought
yes,
saying it.
what, you know, puja's angst, and not puja as an individual, but puja as Brahmins, their angst also has to be taken into account. You know, when you're moving forward, you know,
Census karo.
Exactly. Census karo, system ko refine karo. System ko refine karo. This system does, you know, every system needs to be refined after maybe 25 years, 50 years, 75 years. Now the system needs to be refined. Economically weaker sections, they need to be brought up better.
I was just trying to make that point. Actually, Pooja makes a point here about Hindus feeling marginalized because of the large reservation that's been given to smaller communities. What I believe is economically weaker sections should be kept at a pedestal, and that should be the priority, right? Each community.
How do you find out?
But
that's in the general category. You're already
already
getting a 10% reservation.
Also, I mean, I know that the caste system is deep-rooted in India, but even many Brahmins believe that they are being deprived. Even if they are poor, they don't get the benefits that the
It is already there. It is already there.
So EWS quota should be actually given priority rather than caste, community, religion.
Both. It cannot be one at the cost of other. It needs to be done. You know, this is where you bring up your society step by step. It's not a utopian concept. That's exactly why it needs to be debated at length by our lawmakers in Parliament, keeping that vote bank politics aside. Again, I know it's quite a utopian concept, but the fact that the founding fathers were able to do it, they were able to do it, they were able to debate it. Let's do it once again.
Please understand that from Pooja's community, one of the greatest from Pooja's community was Jawaharlal Nehru. His surname could not denote the privilege that he had. So he had to add Pandit in the beginning. It is a privilege. And he also insisted.
For families, for people who have suffered immensely.
What Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru enjoyed in 1947, what happened in 1947 is precisely the point. I am sorry, those realities are changing in 2024.
I am not talking about what happened in Kashmir with the Pandits. I am saying it is a privilege to be a Pandit.
True. That's it. We've got to accept it.
What happened was horrible, but the fact is, the caste is a reality, has been a reality for years.
It's a privilege to be a Pandit in Tamil Nadu, a Brahmin in Tamil Nadu.
No longer. No.
Exactly.
No.
So, you know, that's my point. Let's wake up to realities of today, my friend.
If being Pandit was a privilege, I wouldn't have been scared to flaunt it, because the moment I mention it, even if as a matter of coincidence, the jibes and attacks thrown at me for a simple issue where I feel
you're confusing.
I will speak from my experience. I will speak from my experience. No, there are many like me who believe that there has to be
begin to talk about Muslim marginalization.
There has to be a more understanding.
There is absolutely, despite having reservation for Muslims, the kind of hate that comes in the way of Muslims,
I agree.
The kind of hate. And we're all okay with it and complicit. That's what's shocking.
The reason I have not interjected during this particular segment is because I wanted to actually reflect, you know, how many different debate points there could be, even from a personal perspective. And that's the reason I didn't want to get in and, you know, shift the conversation elsewhere.